Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is Learn to Sew with Nani. Here on this channel, I upload sewing tutorials every week. So consider subscribing if you like the sound of that. Today, I'm showing us how to make a bias tape without your bias tape maker. And this is what a bias tape looks like. Bias tape is a strip of fabric that has been cut on the bias of the fabric. The bias is the 45-degree angle across the weave of the fabric. Fabric cut on bias is more elastic, which is an essential quality of a bias tape. Okay, so there are different uses and so many functions of a bias tape. So right here I have the fabric I want to make the bias tape from, and along the length of my fabric people make the mistakes of cutting along the length of the fabric. A bias tape is cut along the weave of the fabric diagonally. You can see that part is stretchy. All right, and for you to make a bias tape you need to make sure that it's elastic or it's stretchy. That's what helps the bias tape to work. All right, so you fold in form of a triangle or an angle 45-degree. Okay, it's also called folding on bias or folding in form of a triangle or folding diagonally or folding in form of angle 45-degree. Okay, so you basically just need to fold it like this. Okay, so what I'll just do is to cut this thing out now so that we'll focus on making the bias tape. All right, so just fold your fabric in angle 45. You can use any type of fabric to make your bias tape. So I'm working on Ankara. I'm using Ankara to make a bias tape now. All right, so you really do not need your bias tape maker to make a bias tape. All right, so now opening my fabric, I have a square. Right, so you can see along the width, okay, along the weave of the fabric is stretchy, so that's why we are folding in form of a triangle or angle 45 degrees. So when you fold like this towards the folded edge, you can see the folded edge, the part that faces you, that is where you start cutting out your bias tape from. Now the bias tape has different sizes depending on what you're working on. Okay, you can have a half inch, 1 inch, 2 inches, whatever you want to work on. So I'm making a 2 inches a 1.5 inches bias tape. Okay, so you can do 1.5 or 2 inches depending on the size you want for your bias tape. So I'm making 1.5 inches, so I'm marking 1.5 inches all through. All right, so from the top of the fabric I just marked 1.5 inches all the way to the side, then I'll connect it into a straight line. So afterwards I'll go and mark 1.5 inches ahead of the first line that I've made. Okay, so I'll mark 1.5 inches all through, okay, till I get to the top of the fabric. All right, it's quite so easy to make. All right, so marking 1.5 inches all the way around, okay, all around it like so. So like I said, there are so many functions of a bias tape. You can use it for binding your seams, you can use it for piping, you can use it for finishing raw edges, and it's an alternative to lining and facings. You can use it for decorations, creative designs. Okay, so there are so many uses and functions of a bias tape, and you as a fashion designer know that you need to know how to make a bias tape at the tip of your fingers. Okay, so what I'll just do is to go and mark 1.5 inches all the way. All right, since I'm making a 1.5 inches bias tape, so I'll go and mark 1.5 inches all the way. Right, so I'm done doing that. So the next thing would be to cut out. Okay, so from the lower part to the top I marked 1.5 inches all through. All right, so you can see how much I have. So I'm just going to cut. First thing is to slice open the folded part that is facing you, that way you have double of anything you're cutting out. Okay, so you just slice it open, yeah, like so. Then we'll now start cutting. Yeah, so you can use it. This is Ankara. You can make it on any type of fabric. So we'll just basically cut, that's all. I'll cut through the top. Okay, so I'll discard this. I wouldn't be using it for anything, so it will be discarded. So this is the main bias tape. Okay, all through my lines are my bias tape. Right, so this is one, and each one I cut has two tapes inside. Okay, so this is two, it means I have four. Okay, so this is the third one, Now you can also make it into a continuous bias tape. It means you have to join or stitch them together so that you can get them as long as you want. Okay, so you can use them separately like so, but if you wouldn't get to the length of what you're binding or piping, like you know that you can use your bias tip to finish up your raw edges, let's say your peplum or your flare. So because it's actually very wide, you might need a wider bias tip, so you can make it continuous. You can stitch them, okay, and make them as long as you want. So I'm going to show you how you can join this strips of fabric or this your bias strips to make a long strip of bias tip. All right, so we'll just go over to that now. Right, so when you cut your bias tip, you just separate. You can see it's stretchy. All right, so I'm separating it now. Okay, so what you do, you lay it flat. Okay, if you're not joining this, okay, you fold in 1/4 inch on both sides, then fold it together. Okay, and that will give you your bias tape. You can see, so you just go and use your iron and press in 1/4 inch on both sides like so. Press in 1/4 inch all the way down and on the other side. So afterwards you fold them back into two like so, and you have. So to make this into a continuous bias tape, I'll show us how to join it together. So if you place it like so, this is wrong. So what you do is to place the lower edges together. You can see the two low edges, you place them together diagonally like so. Then you're going to stitch with about 1/8 of an inch, just a very tiny stitch along that part. So I just use my pin to pin it down so that you'd see like so. So you just go and sew it down. So when you sew it down like this, you see what it looks like. Then you trim off the excess. Okay, so just make sure you place the lower edges together and stitch it down. Alright, so after stitching, you go in and iron 1/4 inch on both sides. Okay, then fold it back into two and give it a good press. So this is my bias tape and what it looks like. So you could use it to make decorative stitches. You can use it to bind or pipe your neckline, your armhole, and you can use it to seal up your raw edges and all of that. So if you found this video helpful, please subscribe. Bye.